Hello. I get a lot of requests to talk about my Dotfiles, which I use pretty frequently because I'm always setting up or tearing down some machine somewhere. I've been through a couple different solutions, and my latest is ChezMoi from TW Payne on GitHub, and I've got that up on the screen here. You can go to chezmoi.io for more information on how to get started there. My Dotfiles are at github.com/bkettleson/dotfiles. And what I'm going to do is go through a brand new install of an Ubuntu machine. So this is a WSL instance of Ubuntu 18.04, and it has absolutely nothing installed and nothing configured. The only thing I've done is copy my SSH keys over. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that git and curl are installed. So I'll sudo apt update. And then I'll install curl and git if they're not already there. And they both are. So if you look at my GitHub repo, you can see that down at the bottom, there's a curl bash statement that we can pipe in here to install the Dotfile. So what that does is run this setup script. So we're piping the setup script from GitHub directly into bash. And that setup script just checks to see whether you're on Linux or Windows. I'm sorry, Linux or Mac OS, and then installs ChezMoi and then applies my Dotfiles. It will fail if you don't have access to the repo. So that's why I set my SSH keys up first. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this and then go back here and paste it. You see it noticed that I'm a Linux user, and it went ahead and started to update and apply all the Dotfiles. So the next thing it's doing is cloning my Dotfiles repo from GitHub. So we'll tell it that's okay. And I have this set in verbose mode so we can watch all of the pretty things fly across the screen. That'll always be fun. So here's a link to that repo again, TW Payne ChezMoi, while we watch this. This process doesn't take too long. I have it installing lots of different packages, so it depends entirely on how many different things you're asking your environment to install. Like I said, mine's pretty heavy, so it's installing all the tools that I need for development. Let's go back and look at that GitHub repo while this is working. So in my Dotfiles, the first thing that runs is the setup.sh file, and that installs ChezMoi, and then it calls the ChezMoi command to run my Dotfiles. In the Dotfiles themselves, there is a script called run once install -packages. And in the documentation, it tells you how to run a thing on first install. And that is somewhere in here, but basically the point is you need to have this run once. Any command that's called run once will be run as a bash script the whole time. So I'm checking again to see if it's Mac or Unix because my Dotfiles are different for each. And if it's Linux, it's going to apply all of the packages in my package list.txt file. So it will apt install those, and that's a pretty heavy list of packages. Then it's going to install Bashmarks and Go, NeoVim, NVM, Rust, and Yarn. And then the last thing it does is install Starship and Just, So Starship is a pretty command prompt. Let's tell it, yes, it's okay to install Rust here. One of the things I need to do is take a look at those scripts. For example, the Rust script, and see if there's a way to tell it that it's just fine to install without prompting me. I'm sure there's a auto or a force or a -yes kind of thing, but I haven't because I'm lazy. And usually I'm sitting right here watching it while it installs. So this is downloading Rust with the Rust up. And you probably can't hear it, but the fans on my machine are going crazy because the Rust compiler is the #1 cause of global warming. So we're almost there. It's finishing its compilation of the Starship command prompt. This is a really simple command prompt app, like a replacement for Powerline, much lighter weight, faster, has all I need but doesn't take a lot of resources or get in the way. I enjoy it quite a bit. While we're waiting for that to install, don't forget to find me on Twitter at @bkettleson. I'm B. Kettleson on Twitch. I'm B. Kettleson on YouTube. B. Kettleson pretty much everywhere. So follow me in all the places. Here's a live picture of my CPU. All right, now it's installing Just, which thankfully is much smaller, just as a make replacement for Rust. And a few of the projects that I'm working on use Just. There we go. So this is done. What I'm going to do is open up a new prompt, a new terminal, so you can see what it looks like after it's sourced the environment variables and configuration. Now this is configured to use Biobu, which I generally won't use on a WSL machine, so I'll disable that. Oops, wrong one. There we go. All right, so now we've got a machine that has my .files in it. Let's take a look at what we actually did here. So under .local, there's a share and ChezMoi. This is the Git repository that my .files are checked out into. And it's kind of a strange place for it to be. But the nice thing is, if we just go back to my home directory, if you want to get into that Git repository and make any changes, you can just type ChezMoi cd, and it takes you into that Git repository. And now, let's say, for example, I want to change the package list that I install. I can run neovim, but first we're going to have to install all my plugins. I've never figured out how to automate the plugin installs. Okay. All right, so now the package list, let's say we decide that we don't want Unison anymore, or we don't want XDG utils. We can just delete them or change them here. Like duplicity is probably a good one I don't need anymore. So now I can git add and commit. There we go, and I've pushed that up to my .files. If I type exit, it'll take me back to my home directory, and all of those changes to my .files have been saved and pushed up to GitHub. We can also use commands directly from the command prompt, like adding existing files or editing them or modifying them. So in my bin directory, I've got a bootstrap and a setup. So cat bootstrap. This is, that's old, I don't need that anymore. cd setup. And the setup has all of these bash scripts that run to install things. And depending on which machine I'm on, I might want to install, say, Zig or LXD, but I wouldn't install LXD if I was on WSL, for example. So let's take a look at Go. I don't know what the latest version of Go is, but it looks like I've got this set up to install 1.14. So let's see if there's been a dot release in Go. There has not yet been a dot release. So let's just change this to install Go 1.13.8 instead. Now I can just ChezMoi add go.sh, and it will be added to the Git staging directory so that I can upload that later if I want to. I don't want to change that, so I'm going to change it back. Add it again, and I should have no active changes. So if you want to add a new file or delete a file, I don't need that bootstrap anymore, so I could do ChezMoi. What was it? Remove. There we go. So I've committed the removal of bootstrap, and can push it. And if we go back to my Dotfiles repo and refresh, there's 85 commits and the bootstrap is removed, duplicity is removed. So this is how I manage my Dotfiles. It's pretty simple. One interesting thing is in my directory here, let's say there was a executable file, a binary that I had installed, for example, in cargo, cd.cargo, there's binaries in here. And let's say for some reason I wanted to commit one of these to my Git repository. If I go into ChezMoi, cd, you see the names of the files aren't names with dots, they're names with the dot expanded to a word. So .bash aliases, .bash exports, .bash functions, and then executables, if I cd into bin, executables, even if they're executable shell files, they're renamed to executable underscore and then the shell file name. And that's how ChezMoi gets around the idea of permissions and attributes on different operating systems. So the ChezMoi executable will make that bash script executable because of the name. And that's kind of strange to get used to, but it's cool. So let's look one last time at that run once. So this is the script that runs when ChezMoi first applies my Dotfiles to a system. And I can go in here and I can change which things I want to run. And let's say I decide I don't like Starship anymore, I can get rid of that. And if you make a change to this file, this run once file, it will automatically apply those changes as soon as you exit the ChezMoi CD thing. And I'm not going to do that. So just to reiterate, my Dotfiles are at github.com/bkettleson/Dotfiles, and ChezMoi is ChezMoi.io, or you can look at the thing on your screen, twpaine/ChezMoi on GitHub. And I hope you enjoyed this little how-to video.